What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. It is Thursday, so I'm with Levin Black. Hi, Levin.
Well, hello there, Rob. Long time no talk.
That's the nicest greeting you've ever given me in like the 5 years we've been doing shows together.
5 years. Jesus, I'm not that old.
It's probably around there. Yeah,
We're coming up on this will be our fourth season this next season.
yeah, I was pretty much right. 4 years,
yeah.
5 years, close
You
enough.
only almost doubled it.
Right. Yeah, that's
Sure.
fine. Before we get rolling here, everybody, please like and subscribe to the YouTube page. And of course, rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network. We are starting to get some reviews and we are grateful for them. Before we get to some of the Aaron Rodgers rumors and Levin's rant on the JT O'Sullivan video, I do want to read a couple of the reviews because we are grateful for them. First one comes from Al200 or AI200. Not sure if that's a lowercase L or a capital I. 5 stars. I truly appreciate what Stats and the crew bring to covering the team I root for. This is the podcast for knowledgeable 49er fans. Commenting honestly on what happens on the field and in the front office is not negative and is what adult fans want to hear. Keep it up, because another Homer podcast is not what this fan base needs. That's from Alejandro, so I guess that would be an Al. And this next one comes from Ryan V22, 5 stars. The gold standard, set the standard. This has been my favorite 49ers podcast, and when it went down right before the NFC Championship game, I felt like I lost a family member. I didn't know how to live my 49ers life. Thanks for bringing it back. Everyone in the network brings a different and honest take, and I'm never bored. Jason's kicker comments had me dying laughing. Thanks to the entire team for all the content. Go Niners. 2 satisfied customers.
Yeah, that's good. I did realize something there when you were reading the second one. That kind of sucks. When they say gold standard, we don't know which they're referring to, the network or our show. That one I think was pretty clearly the network as he continued, but I realized like people when they come in and say gold standard is my favorite, if they just say that, we're going to be which one you talking about?
I just assume all the nice things are about us. And then, if there's any other parts that apply to the rest of the network, okay, fine. But, that's just me. All right, let's get into what seems to be, Levin, an endless stream of 49ers quarterback rumors, because once again, here we are sitting here and we're talking about another quarterback rumor with the 49ers. This one comes from Craig Carton.
Not another quarterback rumor. It's the same damn quarterback rumor every offseason.
Yeah. This one comes from Craig Carton from his show, Craig Carton Live. And basically what he said was, the Packers and 49ers have talked about an Aaron Rodgers trade. It would be a couple, not quite sure the exact number, but some amount of third-round picks, which the 49ers have 3 this year, and a first-round pick next year. And that, of course, is if Rodgers and the Jets or the Packers and the Jets can't get this thing worked out. Just your general reaction to the Aaron Rodgers rumors bubbling up once again.
BS. That's my reaction. Here's the thing. If you start breaking it down, you'll realize that there's an agenda being pushed here and it doesn't make sense. Not that I necessarily think the show made it up. It could be the Packers going through him, but that's what it reeks of to me is the Packers are pushing this out there to scare the Jets to try to get the Jets to budge. Because the real part of it that bothers me is the package that was thrown out there of like what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way the Jets aren't willing to pay that. You know what I mean? Like that's not a steep price. Like what are we talking about here? Oh, hey, we couldn't get the Jets to agree to trade a third-round pick for Aaron Rodgers. Get out of here. Like, they're going to be willing to trade multiple thirds. The sticking point from what has been reported is that they want one of the Jets' top picks. Now, the Jets might be willing to give like a first round next year, and the Packers are not budging. It just doesn't make sense. The trade package that was mentioned along with this rumor doesn't align with what you would think the Jets are willing to pay. And if the Jets aren't willing to pay it, they would not have gone out there and signed all these people for Aaron Rodgers because that's not a steep price. And then you look at it from the 49ers perspective, what the hell do they do if they add Aaron Rodgers? Because one, how does it work money-wise?
Right.
2, okay, well, you can't cut Darnold with his contract. You can't cut Lance with his contract. You're not going to cut Purdy. So you got to try to trade Lance. That's the only one that works. You're not going to have 4 quarterbacks. So you have to trade Trey Lance at that point. And that raises the cap hit. So once again, that creates a cap issue. It's only like 1.7 million or something like that, but it's a bigger cap hit when you're also adding in Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't make sense. If Darnold wasn't here, I could see it, maybe, possibly. But with Darnold and his contract, I don't see any way that the Niners would be looking into this unless they're literally saying, hey, we just want a 3rd round pick. If the price is so incredibly cheap, yeah, the Niners will do it. But if the price is so incredibly cheap, the Jets are going to do it. So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. I said the same thing in 49ers in 5 yesterday morning. Like, this is just the Packers trying to, create a boogeyman for the Jets, because the Jets can sit back and say, look, if we do nothing, you got to pay that guy $60 million. So I know you're not going to do that. If you're the Jets, you're saying this to the Packers. So I'm not going to give you a 1st round pick. And you keep telling me no, and let's see you pay $60 million to Aaron Rodgers. I don't think the Packers are going to want to do that. The cap hits, by the way, for Rodgers the next 3 years. Forget this year. 2024, 40.7 million. 2025, 59.3 million. 2026, 53.4 million. So, Kyle Shanahan literally just said having a quarterback room on rookie deals is, quote, everything. He's not going to go and trade for Aaron Rodgers and then suddenly blow that up. Now, maybe before Javon Hargrave got here, maybe he would have looked into it and at least had the discussion. But even then, I don't think so. And I agree with you. Something stinks about this rumor.
I mean, there's multiple other parts of this. One, get the heck out of here if you think the Packers are going to give Aaron Rodgers to the 49ers and have to deal with that storyline. There is no way they're willing to do that. There is no way LaFleur is going to give Rodgers over to the guy that gave him his start and Kyle Shanahan. If Kyle Shanahan goes on and wins a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, something LaFleur was not able to do, what's the storyline going to be? Oh, LaFleur is the problem. That's why they weren't able to win the Super Bowl with Rodgers in Green Bay. And then you got Green Bay. Like, the Niners keep knocking them out of the playoffs. There's no way they want to then turn around and go, okay, go win a Super Bowl with our guy. We're totally fine with that. There's just no way. It makes no sense. To me, this is 100% the Packers wanted a storyline out there to at least create another possibility. I think, personally, if the Packers did that, they picked the wrong team, because this is so unbelievable. Like, pick another team that's got more of a chance. Say like the Texans or somebody that actually has some logical chance of the Packers being willing to actually trade Rodgers to. There is no way Rodgers will be with the 49ers, because the Packers will not give him to an NFC rival like that. And that pretty much means everything else is pointless, because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think the Jets realize the leverage that they have. Now, granted, the Jets don't exactly have a backup quarterback plan ready to go, but they could always draft somebody if they want to, or they could pursue Lamar Jackson. That's still a thing that's out there. So I feel like the Jets have more leverage in the situation. The Packers are trying to do whatever they can.
And if I'm the Jets, that's what I use for even more leverage. Put reports out there that you're pursuing Lamar Jackson to get the Packers to go, crap, we need to move.
So I think that the 49ers side of this is largely not reality anymore. We know they loved him.
They reality on the Packers side, because they're not going to put him with the 49ers. They're not going to make that marriage made in heaven storybook ending for Rodgers.
The ship has sailed. The Niners tried to get Aaron Rodgers in 2021 before they traded up to 3 for Lance, and they tried to get him after. The day of the draft, they called the Packers to try again. So they definitely wanted him. But I just think that, the ship has sailed, and, people could talk about, well, Rodgers is from there, blah, blah, blah. If they wanted Aaron Rodgers, they should have drafted him in 2005. It's not happening. And I know I'm the old fuddy-duddy in the room, and people were getting on me on Twitter when I said this. Kay Adams called me out. I don't want him. I don't want him. I don't think he's nearly as good as
him if they can make it work, but they just can't make it work, so there's no point. Like, I think one of the ideal quarterback situations that the 49ers could fall into is get Aaron Rodgers, get 2 years out of Aaron Rodgers, and then the following year after Rodgers retires, you got Purdy in the final year of his contract. He can start, he can take over, and you can see if he's the real deal. If he's not, guess what? You don't owe him any money.
I don't want Rodgers. I don't think he's nearly the player he was. He's not all in. And that's the big thing for me, Levin. He's not all in anymore. He doesn't want to show up for OTAs. He had all rookies basically in his wide receiver room last year for the Packers. And he didn't bother to show up for OTAs to work with them. And then what happened? Oh, the offense started slow. And people are like, yeah, but at the end of the year, they look good. Yeah. After they actually got reps and time together, their chemistry improved. Imagine that. But like, if he's not invested enough to do that, then why do I want to bring this guy here? I don't like it. I don't want it. He said he was 90% retired before. If you're that close to retirement, you are retired. No thank you for me on Aaron Rodgers. I don't want him.
We need to start calling him Brett Rodgers.
He's literally, the metamorphosis is almost complete.
Yeah, it's weird.
So no thanks on Aaron Rodgers. Fun to talk about for another day, but yeah, I agree. I think your take on that is spot on. The Packers are trying to pull a fast one.
Damn right it is.
I give you credit when your takes are right. It just doesn't happen that often.
I know. My Twitter banner is proof of
that. See, exactly. Exactly. And speaking of giving credit, I want to give credit to Haberman and Middlecoff, because this is something that I heard on their show that they didn't spend too much time on, and I have not been able to think about anything else since I heard it. So I wanted to bring it up with you.
2 guys you didn't put in the media bracket?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Guy. And I apologize, okay? Habes and Middlecoff, forgive me. The question that I think it was Guy brought up is Brock Purdy going to be a captain this year? Which I think is fascinating. And if you don't remember why, this was a big deal with me last year when the 49ers named their captains and Trey Lance was left off the list. The Niners had 7 captains in 2021. Then all of a sudden in 2022, they mysteriously had 6.
He wasn't left off the list. The list was trimmed.
It was shrunk to exclude him. Yeah. Right.
The list he was on, and they purposely said, oh, hold on, let's just magically cut it here. Oh, look, Trey Lance isn't a captain.
And they first of all, they talked way too much about it. They revealed way too much of the process, which made them look terrible. But they cut Lance out. He was mysteriously, all of a sudden, they couldn't have another captain, and he wasn't a captain. And my whole theory at the time was because they knew they might have to bench him, and they didn't like the optics of that. So Guy Haberman brought it up. Is he going to be a captain this year? And I think it's fascinating, Levin, for many reasons. If he's not a captain, the Niners can clearly justify it, right? We don't know when he's going to be back. We don't know, there's too much uncertainty there, so he's not going to be a captain. But what if he is a captain? What if Brock Purdy is a captain and he can't even play till week 4? What does that then say about their decision to cut Trey out of it last year?
So my take is Trey Lance should be a captain whenever he gets the starting role back. If he's ready to go week 1, he's going to be a captain. If he's not ready to go week 4, hey, he's not a captain. We only have 6 captains. Oh, Brock Purdy is going in week 4. Hey, we got 7 captains again. Look at that. That's what I think should happen. Because I 100% think he will be at the top of the list or very close to it amongst the player votes. I think he's going to be top 3 of the player votes.
You think captain. Brock will be?
Yes. So I think he will be in that locker room seen as a captain. The problem is, to me, I think it would be misguided by Kyle Shanahan to allow Purdy to be named a captain when he can't play, and then Trey Lance has to go out there. To me, I think you just delay it. You keep it at 6 captains, and then once he gets a starting gig back, you make him the 7th captain. But if Trey Lance truly has, as Kyle Shanahan said, a chance to get the starting gig back, then you got to make sure that there's not a quarterback that's already a captain, because then your hands are tied. I think the moment Purdy is healthy, he has to go back in. But if Purdy can't go, say, until week 4, you want to leave open that door just in case Trey Lance comes in and, say, through 3 games, he has 9 touchdowns and they're 3-0 and you want to stick with him. You don't need that mess. So
Right.
why create it? Why even open that door to a possibility? There's no reason to open that door as a possibility.
Which is exactly what they did last year. They didn't open that door. They left Lance off the list. And they even said he was the 7th guy, and they cut it off. They told us Debo was 8th, by the way. If you forget, it was Armstead, Warner, Kittle, Trent Williams, Jimmie Ward, and Nick Bosa. Those were the 6 last year. So with Ward leaving, Levin, that opens up a spot. Is
Debo.
that you think it's Debo or Christian McCaffrey?
That's a good point. I guess we'll find out. Yeah, I would say it's probably more likely Christian McCaffrey.
It's interesting that Debo was that low, especially coming off the year that he had. Now, he also came off an offseason where he requested a trade. So maybe that was a factor too.
It could have been. I would say it might be a little telling if Debo is once again not a captain of the
right.
Because if the Niners think there's at least they're going to investigate the possibility of trading him next offseason when they can and save money in order to afford Ayuk, then you probably don't want him to be a captain.
Maybe not. Does Javon Hargrave come in and step up? I don't know what kind of guy he is in the locker room, and is he a vocal leader, that kind of thing? I'm not sure. I don't know him that well yet, but that'd be fascinating too. He would be replacing Ward, who obviously played on defense. Do the Niners want another defensive guy there to be a captain? I don't know. Could it be Mooney Ward? Could he end up being a captain?
Greenlaw?
Yeah, it's possible, I suppose. But I want to see.
He's an emotional guy. He could be an emotional leader.
I want to see what happens with Brock. I'm fascinated by that. Like if Kyle comes right out of the gate and says, "Yep, Brock Purdy's a captain." I mean, Kyle even admitted last year, I could fudge the vote. I could do whatever I want. Mm-hmm. So if Kyle wants Brock Purdy to be a captain, it doesn't really matter what the players vote. He could fudge it.
Yep. If Purdy is a captain week 1, even when he's not healthy, the writing is on the wall. Everybody knows the deal.
Yep.
It's done. And I think that's stupid because I think that would have to, at least in some small way, affect Trey Lance. So why do that? But it wouldn't. Let me say this. I'm talking logically. It wouldn't make any sense. Why open that door? In terms of whether or not I would be surprised if it happened, I would not be, because this team, when it comes to stuff like that, I think Kyle Shanahan is extremely naive when it comes to kind of that human element part of it. I think he is kind of a hard knock, kind of old school guy that, quit being a crybaby, get over it. It's like, the reality is, yeah, it does affect things. So stop doing it. But he's never learned that lesson. He's never going to. I think obviously he knows how to handle players, but there are certain aspects that I think he doesn't understand. When you slight somebody or you not necessarily insult, but there's some kind of perceived negative thing out there that does have an actual effect, and it's not always positive. So you shouldn't open that door if you don't have to.
And here's the other, I think, kind of interesting side of this is, what if Brock Purdy is voted as a captain by the players, but Kyle says, I don't like that can of worms. I don't want to open that door. I don't want to go through that process. He's already admitted he can change the vote. Does he then say, I got to take Brock off the list because I don't like the optics of this situation? And does he go against the player vote? Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. Like I said, I think Purdy will be top 3 in that voting. 100%. So if Purdy's not a captain, I would say, yeah, Shanahan did some shenanigans. That should be like a trademarked thing, by the way. Shanahan shenanigans.
Shanahanigans. You got to make it one word.
There's so many possibilities there.
Yeah, and it's funny because at last year, everybody told me, oh, Trey Lance hasn't earned it. Trey Lance hasn't earned it. But Brock Purdy, with all of his 7 games, he's earned it.
If I'm being honest with you, I think that there is a little different of a level there. Hey, Trey Lance started 2 regular season games. Brock Purdy won 2 playoff games. I think there's a little bit of a difference in terms of whether or not they would have earned it. You win 2 playoff games as a quarterback, you probably have earned the right to be a captain.
I don't know. I could point to a couple of playoff games Jimmy Garoppolo won where he didn't exactly earn it. I mean, let's not act like Brock Purdy was lighting up the Dallas Cowboys for a bunch of points. He didn't.
No, but he won them. So, Jimmy Garoppolo was a captain, so.
Yeah, and he friggin' shouldn't have been. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting. I had forgotten about all that captain stuff, and then when Guy brought it up, I was like, "Oh my god, that's right. I forgot about that." I started digging through my old
The captain
Niners.
thing will be telling one way or the other. If Purdy's a captain, we know it's his gig no matter what. If he's not a captain, I would say that leaves the door open because I 100% believe he will be voted in as a captain if you just went strictly off the player vote. So you will know Kyle's thoughts, I think, based on that. You will know whether or not he thinks Trey Lance has any chance of actually overtaking and keeping that starting gig.
And they'll probably by then have a good idea of what's up with Brock Purdy because they didn't name the captains till September last year. And obviously with Brock, they're going to know before then where he'll be. So maybe
There is one wrinkle here that we haven't talked about yet.
All right.
Kyle could do a smokescreen. Make Trey Lance a captain. And then week 4, suddenly he's not a captain, Purdy's a captain, and Purdy's starting.
I mean, I guess you could do that, but I think that optically looks
He could
bad
give
too.
he could give Trey Lance like the chance of a confidence boost. It's like, all right, Purdy should be back week 4. Lance has an opportunity here in 3 weeks to show us what he's got. There's a small chance he gets to keep the gig, so I'm going to make him a captain, give him that confidence boost, get all the media out there that, oh, Trey Lance is a captain, and you come out and you say, hey, he's the starting quarterback. We're going to make the starting quarterback a captain. And then all of a sudden you can still swap it and say, hey, our starting quarterback changed. So the captain's changed.
You know what
I can see that wrinkle just for Kyle to be, sitting there all, I don't know how you want to put it, but I could see him being smug sitting in that press conference, knowing exactly what he did to distract from everything else.
You know what my first question would be? Okay, Kyle, you wanted the quarterbacks to be captain. Why didn't you do that last year?
Well, right.
That would be my first question to him on that.
And he could say he learned from his error last year that he should have.
No, Kyle Shanahan doesn't do that. He doesn't admit that he made mistakes and that he's
it's always a player
them.
execution issue.
That is not Kyle's MO. He is not likely to admit that he actually stepped in it and maybe, could possibly change one of his coaching decisions going forward. No, we don't do that here in San Francisco.
No, definitely not. They've never made a mistake by drafting a running back in the 3rd round. Never.
Well, Jason and Steph were talking this week about how every time they mention the possibility of another running back, people freak out on them.
There's no effing reason. You got McCaffrey, you got Mitchell, you got Mason, and I guarantee they'll find some promising undrafted free agent rookie because they do every year. Like,
right.
Zero reason to take a running back.
Hey, you're preaching to the choir. You don't have to convince me. Okay, in the quarterback vein, since we were just talking about that, I know that we've discussed a lot this week on the network, the JT O'Sullivan April Fool's parody video, where he quote unquote interviews Kyle Shanahan, talked a lot about nepotism, talked about Kyle's drop back passing game. And I know that you were fired up about it because you've been wanting to talk about it, but you've had to wait until Thursday of the week. So feel free
JT,
to
next time publish it like Wednesday, okay?
Yeah, unburden yourself here, Levin.
Yeah, I know it's an April Fool's tradition, but I'm more important than a calendar, okay?
What's your beef?
My beef is that it can be all things that are being thrown out there. One, I love the video, so this is not a rant on JT O'Sullivan. I love the video. But to me, like, people are taking it as, how dare you criticize Kyle Shanahan? He's a great coach. It's like, you can be a great coach and deserve criticism. And I think it breaks down like this. Kyle Shanahan is a great coach, okay? So we should say that right off the start. But he does do some things that put his quarterbacks in bad spots that they're going to get hit more. And the way in which he does that, which JT O'Sullivan, I think, demonstrates very well in his video, is that he has offensive linemen forced to do very complicated blocking. They got to pull a lot. This guy absolutely has to win his role or his job on this play. Otherwise, the whole thing gets blown up. And we saw that on the Trey Lance injury one where the guard got blown up and the guy was able to get inside, and that made everybody else have to change their angles, and they were getting to places late, and Trent Williams was getting in the hole and not quite sure what to do. Because you have such complicated blocking schemes, one, that's kind of what makes it work for Kyle Shanahan. That's why it's so hard for defenses to know what to do against them. But it does mean that you're putting players in less likely to win situation because it's more complicated. There's more chance of a mistake and losing a rep. And when you have that as often as the 49ers do, that means there are going to be more reps. Might only be 1, 2, 3 times a game, but it is more and it adds up over the course of a season where your quarterback is getting hit when a simplified blocking scheme wouldn't get him hit. Now, like I said, that's kind of what makes the offense great. So you can't really just change that. But it can be that, yes, Kyle runs an offense that puts his quarterbacks in the line of fire more often. And it could also be what Kyle Shanahan has actually said in press conferences, that it's an execution issue. Yes, that's true. If every single person did their job on the play, it would have worked. That's true. Kyle's not going to call a play that's guaranteed to not work. That would be stupid of him, right? So every single play he calls, yeah, if it's blocked and executed 100% perfectly, it's going to be a great play. But that's true of every single play. That's why when Kyle said that, we criticized it because it's kind of stupid. Yeah, of course, if the players execute perfectly. The problem is I think he puts them in low-win situations sometimes. And you can look at some of the biggest examples. Can a backup tight end block Hassan Reddick by themselves long enough for a very long developing deep shot passing play? No, like that's going to fail more often than not, I think. So you're putting it in a situation where, yeah, if the backup tight end wins his rep, it's a great play, but you're putting him in a situation that he's more likely to lose than to win. And I think you also saw that with the way the defense lined up on the Trey Lance play that JT O'Sullivan showed, where the defensive tackle was moved over. And so the angle for that guard was not going to be a good one. So he was almost guaranteed to not be able to win that rep just because the angle in which he was going to have to go to. And they needed the center to be able to go over there and help due to the angle. And they didn't do that because it was part of the play design to not do that. So I think it's 100% that the criticism Kyle deserves most as a coach, even though he's a great coach. What is a coach supposed to do? He's supposed to put his players in the best possible position to succeed. And sometimes he does not do that. Sometimes he gets, I think, fixated on running this shot play and running this really complicated play that could end up working great and being a huge play, but it's putting his players, and especially the offensive linemen, in a position to where they have a low chance of success. And that's not necessarily good coaching. And that's the part that I feel like people are always trying to say it's one or the other. He can be a great coach, but he could also be doing these kind of shot plays a little too frequently to where he could simplify it a little more often or give the players the ability to change it or something based on what they've seen. The fact that the play wasn't changed on the Trey Lance injury when it was clear that the defensive tackle was going to be able to blow up that play because he was lined up far to the left of the guard that was going to have to block him, and he was right in the hole where it was supposed to be. That should have been changed.
Okay, but is that Kyle Shanahan's fault? I don't know. But also,
can't know for sure. That's true.
There are plays every single game where a coach calls a play and you know what? They're in the wrong look. The defense is just in a play or a formation where the offensive play is not going to work. That happens to every coach, every game, multiple times a game. It also doesn't guarantee that somebody's going to get hurt, especially having a season-long injury.
That's why I said it adds up. If you're doing that more than other guys, even if it's only 1-2 times a game, that's 17 to 34 more hits on your quarterback if it's 1 to 2 times a game. And that adds up. And I do think Kyle calls those plays a little more frequently than others. And that's why we have seen his quarterbacks get injured far more than any other coach. And that even goes prior to Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo is part of it. And Jimmy Garoppolo is certainly injury prone. Trey Lance at this point is certainly, I would argue, injury prone. But at the same time, that's another thing that can be both. Yes, you can have players that are more likely to get hurt for the unknown reason that medical doctors have not been able to figure out of why one person's injury prone and another person's not. But it can also be that you have injury prone players and you're getting them hit more often due to the type of scheme that you're wanting to utilize and the shot plays that you're wanting to call. It can be both. I just feel like he puts his players in a position where they're not going to be able to succeed a little too often.
I would say great play callers do the opposite. And I think Kyle is a great play caller. He's not perfect at it, but I think that he gets way more blame for injuries than other coaches. And to me, it's we've gone too far in that direction. Like you can't avoid all injuries if you call a perfect game. That's just not how it works.
You know what I would be fascinated to see, and it's way too large of a thing for me to compute, whether or not this offense, go back, look at everybody that's running this offense, which is an offense that causes a lot of offensive linemen to need to pull. It's a lot more pulling. That's why Kyle Shanahan looks for these athletic offensive linemen that are capable of getting to the second level, and look to see if those offenses do have, when added up all together, you're going to get a pretty large sample size, compare it to the NFL average for injuries, and see if it is the offense. That because so many offensive linemen have to pull, you, one, have guys going in different angles, and two, when you're pulling, it takes longer to get to your spot, and a lot of things have to go right for you to be able to get to that spot. So maybe there's chances of guys getting hit more because you have so much motion going on amongst your offensive line. I'd love to see that, because you can look at, Mike Shanahan's offense. You can look at the Rams. You can go up and look at the Packers, the 49ers. You're going to have a wide number. You can get 20, maybe even 30 seasons worth of a sample size to compare to the NFL average and see if it does actually lead to more injuries just because of the way the offense is set up.
Yeah, I don't know how you would actually compute that. And
you would have to go to every single team, add up the injuries, and track it. And
I have neither the time nor the inclination
NFL researcher, to do that. Michelle.
All right. Well, that'll segue us nicely. I see what you did there. You've obviously learned a thing or two after working with me for all these years.
Oh, yes. I learned this from you, not from my years of doing this.
Into our last topic of the day, which is apparently you have a bone to pick with me and Michelle for something we said last week.
Yeah, and the bone to pick is with you.
Oh, good.
You're dead wrong, is what it is. You are way underselling the Steelers. And that's just, they were 9-8 with shit Bisky as a quarterback for part of the season. And with a rookie Kenny Pickett. Even if Kenny Pickett doesn't improve on his rookie year, which I think he probably will, there was some promise there. I saw a lot of, because I watched probably 5 games of the Steelers last year, especially towards the end of the season, where Pickett made a lot of the right choices. He was taking a lot of deep shots, and that's where a lot of his interceptions came from, because he would see one-on-one and he would throw a jump ball, and a lot of those jump balls ended up interceptions. I wouldn't say that's necessarily a bad decision, and you would think law of averages, those wouldn't be as many interceptions. But even if he doesn't improve, they will have better quarterback play than last year because they don't have that Trubisky period. But then you also add in the TJ Watt, like Michelle said. You're looking at, if you just make those slight adjustments where, okay, say Pickett is just a tiny bit better because he's not a rookie anymore, and they have TJ Watt healthy. That's a 10 or 11 win team that the Niners have to go to the Eastern time zone to play. That is not a guaranteed win. You had it in, you're not worried about it. They're definitely going to win that. That is 100% a 50-50. You don't know what's going to happen in that game.
I'm not worried about it at all. Oh, wow, the Steelers have one good player on defense. Let me clutch my pearls. No. We do this with teams all the time. People are doing this with the Lions, too. They're like, oh, look at their win total.
They're not the Lions. They're the polar opposite of the Lions. They haven't had a losing season since we were almost in diapers.
Great. Congratulations. Why don't you try actually winning something instead of just not losing more games than you win? Nobody gets more credit for not having a losing season than Mike Tomlin. When's the last time the Steelers made a deep playoff run?
If you are a 9-10 win team every single year, it means that you are a decent team. And that when you have to travel a very long way to play that team in their house, it's not a guaranteed win because they are a playoff team almost every single year.
Mike Tomlin, since 2018, he was 9-6-1, 8-8, 12-4, 9-7-1, 9-8. That's barely over 500. I'm not shaking in my boots to play them. I don't care if it's in Pittsburgh. I don't care if it's in San Francisco. I don't care if it's on the moon. All right. I do not care who the Steelers beat last year. Okay. They beat Cincinnati in week 1 in overtime, which weird stuff always happens in overtime. They beat Tom Brady. They beat the Saints, who stunk, the Colts, who stunk, the Falcons, who stunk, the Panthers, who stunk.
Hold up. Who lost to the Falcons?
Yeah, the 49ers, when they were playing like crap.
Oh, so it's possible that you have to travel that far and you could lay an egg.
Yeah, you can lay an egg when 8 of your 11 defensive starters missed the game, like the 49ers. I mean, they beat the Raiders, they beat the Ravens with no Lamar Jackson, and they beat the Browns. Like, oh no, here come the Steelers. That's a win. Book it. Whether it's Brock, whether if it's Sam Darnold, forget that. I won't pick the 49ers to win in any game Sam Darnold starts. But if it's Brock or Trey, that's a win. That's a win.
I don't think the Steelers are some great team sitting here, but they're a pretty good team, and they're at home, and the Niners have to travel a long way where the track record is not great.
The 49ers are great.
By the way, fascinated to see if they do if the schedule breaks down to where that Steelers game is like the second game of East Coast trip, because Youngstown is an hour from Pittsburgh.
Well, that's the issue, is that the Niners are good traveling east, but then when they come back is usually when they have their problem. And they do have, if you look at the road games this year, they've got quite a few trips to different time zones, I'll say. Remember,
I think it would be fascinating to have a Pennsylvania back-to-back. Have them play Philly and then have them play the Steelers.
Right, which is why I love when the schedule comes out in May, because we get to actually see how this breaks down. Yeah. The Niners have road games in Philly, in Washington, in Cleveland, Pittsburgh, like we talked about, Minnesota, and Jacksonville. So that's a lot of time outside the Pacific time zone. Remember last year, after like their bye, they only left the Pacific time zone once for like the entire second half of the season. It's not going to be like that this year.
Actually, if I'm the 49ers, I would be sending the league saying, hey, give us Cleveland and Pittsburgh back-to-back. Because Philly is 6 hours or 5.5 hours to the east of Pittsburgh. Cleveland is like 3 hours, and right in the middle is Youngstown, which is, the hometown of the 49ers, because the owners are from there. But they've stayed there before, had success there. And that's like almost dead on in the center between the two cities. So it'd be easy. Like, they could travel to the game from staying in Youngstown if they wanted to for either one of those games. It's close enough.
Jed said at the league meetings this year that he's willing to do the kind of extended East Coast stay again this year, like he's done in years past.
If they're in Youngstown, I already told my wife I might be spending a week in Youngstown.
Oh boy. Levin road trip.
Actually, probably wouldn't even have to stay in Youngstown. It is about an hour from my house, so I could just make that every day.
There we go. Well, like I said, we're talking about doing the Niners road trip to Pittsburgh to try and get that going. Hopefully we can, but again, we got a lot of stuff we got to get in order before that.
By the way, have you ever been to a major college game?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I was listening to you and Vish. What is wrong with you?
Okay.
See, I am polar opposite of you two, because I grew up in a Big Ten town. So I went to Purdue football games when I was a young kid. When I got into high school, it was the Drew Brees years. My mom decided to get season tickets. She worked for Purdue, so they actually weren't expensive. And so, like, I've been to a lot of big football games. NFL games I've only been to 3, because the Niners don't play around you a whole lot when you grow up in the state of Indiana.
Shocking.
But like, that atmosphere, like, I live for that atmosphere. When I was in college and I was covering my college team, the first year I covered the football beat, I stayed up in the press box. The second year I said, screw this. I'm going down to the sideline so I can feel that energy from the crowd and really be a part of it. And so I did. Every game I would be roaming the sidelines back and forth and be watching. Like, you can get more from that, where you're watching the players and the coaches interact, and you can kind of pick up on things that it's difficult to pick up from in the press box. But I live for that atmosphere.
Yeah, great. What does that have to do with me going to a game? Okay.
How can you be a huge football fan and never have been to a major football game of any level?
Because you're talking to somebody that's been producing a national sports talk show for years. I always had a national sports talk show to produce on Monday morning at 6 a.m.
You didn't have that while you were in high school. You didn't have that while you were in college. Granted,
well, I went to
college with no freaking football team,
well,
but you were close to me. I mean, you were half an hour outside of New York, an hour.
You don't have any idea. Do you know where New York and Connecticut are? Have you looked at a map?
I do know where they are, but I don't know how long it takes you.
It takes a lot longer than that. half hour. Yeah, so first of all, I've gone to high school football games. My high school football team was awful. There was no football team in college because I went to Quinnipiac University. They do not have a football team. So I didn't go to any football games in college. And then, like I said, I started working for ESPN while I was in school at Quinnipiac. So I've been producing national talk shows on Monday mornings. I can't be going to a game on Sunday and hanging out till midnight and then showing up for work at 4 a.m. the next day, which is what I was doing.
Yes, you can. I have done it.
You have not done it.
I have done it. In fact, I do it every single Instant Reacts when we have a damn night game.
No, but you're not producing a national talk show where you have to be able to talk about everything that goes on in the other games, which you can't see if you're at one game. That's the thing. You're cut off. I don't like that feeling of I need to know what's going on around the league everywhere. I got to have multiple screens up. I got to be in my spot, in my element. I don't know.
You got to be.
I don't know if I would like it.
What you're saying.
I don't know if I would like just
you
being
are
at
now
the
known
stadium.
as Rob Hermit Guerrera. No more stats. You're Hermit.
That's a far less catchy nickname. I'll just say that.
A little more fitting though.
But I would obviously be willing to do it if we could all go to a game and get the chance to meet people. That would be really cool, and all meet up because none of us have ever been in the same room together. So obviously that would be super cool.
Well, Steph and Jason, they've met.
Well, that's true. Yeah, Steph and Jason, but the rest of us have not. Speaking of things we have going on, which I mentioned a little earlier, you have started the official Gold Standard Network Instagram page. It is brand new. There's only 2 posts on the whole page right now, as I say
Both
this.
made like an hour ago.
So there you go. That's how fresh it is. But obviously, we'll have more content as it gets going. But please follow us there. Facebook too. You can search GSN 49ers on Instagram, and it'll pop right up. You can obviously search for Gold Standard Network on Facebook, and it'll come up. We'll have content there for everybody. We're getting this thing up and running.
Once we're still working out the kinks. I literally just created them. Once we get everything kind of smoothed out, all the details in there, we'll make a post so that you can easily find the link to follow.
Right. But if you want to get on the early start, the soft opening, so to speak, like restaurants have a soft opening. There you go. Feel free. We're going to hopefully get a website up and running. It's in the works right now. It's under construction, let's say. But once we do, we'll have a Gold Standard website. I know, Levin, you want to write for it. Michelle wants to write for it. I'm going to write for it as well. So we're trying to get everything up and running before the start of the regular season. So that's the ultimate goal. And once we do,
Brock Purdy.
Oh. Yeah,
who's going to win that race?
We might have the website up in week 1. We might have it up in week 4. Who knows? It's too soon to tell. Check back in 3 months.
Yeah, that's the race. That's what we got to beat. And
that's
screw regular season, training camp.
I know. Probably. Yeah, the sooner the better.
We need to be able to write about, hey, this guy had an interception in practice. He's the next great one. Defensive MVP, here they come.
I used to be on that train, but now considering that basically we were lied to last year in terms of how the quarterbacks did, I want to know every single freaking thing that happens in training camp this year. I want to know everything. I want as much video from camp because I don't know if Brock Purdy was good in camp last year or if he sucked. Because Larry Krueger says he was awesome. Jason Aponte and Steph and other people that were there, Grant, said Brock Purdy stunk. So, I don't know. So this year, give me as much. I'll take everything.
Sounds like we need to get a sponsor so you can go spend 2 weeks in San Jose.
I'll do it. I don't have anything else to do right now. Please, some local company out in California or San Francisco. We had 3 million downloads last year. That's a big audience for you. Feel free to throw us some coin of the realm, and I'm happy to go out and cover training camp. Sure.
And if you want to throw a little extra so a second person can tag along, I won't argue.
God, I can't imagine what it would be like to be out on the road with you. We'd have to share a hotel room. Oh, God.
You would be surprised. I have 2 different personalities. The mess with you, life of the party persona that is my outside of home. If I'm in my hotel room or I'm at home, I'm vegging, relaxed, quiet, polar opposites. I had to flip a switch to be this awesome and good looking.
I'm speechless. I have no speech. If this is Levin with turned up Levin, I don't even want to know what vegged out Levin is. Do you even speak?
I really do have like two completely different. If I'm out in public, like like my father comes out, my father's an extreme extrovert, always the center of everything. When I'm at home, it's my mother's introvert, and like I just sit around. I don't need to do a whole lot. I don't want a lot of activities. I will get annoyed if my wife has a whole bunch of activities planned for days off. It's like, how about I just sit and do nothing?
And you call me the hermit. Okay. That's going to do it for this edition of the show.
When's the last time you left your basement, Rob? Or your house, I should say.
I went upstairs 40 minutes ago to eat lunch, you jerk.
That's why I changed it to the house, because I knew you were going to be like, I went upstairs.
I leave the house every day. I got to pick up my son from school and drop him off in the morning. So there you go. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network, everybody. If you leave a 5-star, if you leave any review, I promise we will read it on the show. And please like and subscribe to the Gold Standard Network YouTube page as well. We will talk to you next week. Levin, I hope you have a very mid-weekend. How do you like that?
Yes, that's a great thing to say on Easter weekend. Thank you so much for that.
Well, not everybody celebrates Easter.
I'm actually going to my hometown, so boom.
Is that good? I don't know.
Yeah. I haven't seen my extended family in years at this point due to COVID.
They're probably really bummed about that too.
I got like 40 or 50 family members back in my hometown. Like I had 22 cousins on my dad's side.
Man, that is a lot. Well, enjoy that. We'll talk to you next week, everybody.